Next up is contrast, and we can think of contrast sort of like this gradient we're seeing, with the absolute white being 0 and the darkest black being 10. So by harnessing the power of contrast, you can effectively direct people's eyes and where they're going to look in your image. So here we have two examples. The contrast system is a little bit clearer than in this photo here, which I pulled from the internet. This art is by Ivan Earl. And both images you can see is a woodland scene with a pretty clear pathway leading somewhere. So now let's discard the color so we can really see their value structure. So as you can see now with both images in black and white, the pathway that was obvious in the picture, in the photo here, become kind of lost. So what this is telling us is that the color was the one doing the heavy lifting and directing the eyes in this sense, whereas in this image, we can still see the path and how the eyes read clearly, following the highest contrast here in the foreground, and then following a lower contrast here in the middle ground, and then into the sky, which has a very close contrast value with the white. You may wonder why we're talking about like black and white value contrast when this is a color class. Value contrast is probably the most powerful tool in directing our eyes. So what it does with a solid value is that it frees up or it liberates the colors. Like as long as the value system is greatly set up, you can kind of use crazy color and the image will still read really well. This image has a really nicely set up value hierarchy with the highest contrast in the foreground, so your eyes kind of follow that, and then into the middle ground with the contrast around like 5 to 0, and then into the background with a contrast around 2 to 0. And then we have this like dark shaped tree right here, and with the shadow kind of like lead our eyes right back in the center, and then the whole circle get repeated. So our eyes just like keep investigating into the scene rather than just, drop out of the image. So this example is actually really good at showing how value is doing the heavy lifting in directing our eyes. What I did is actually change the colors in this image, but following the same value structure. Like here, the trees are actually darker blue. It doesn't have as high a value number as the close to black in the original, but in relationship, it still follows the similar rules and it still read really well. In this case, it become a maroon, like burgundy color, but the value structure is still the same as the original and it still read really well. And in this one, the color palette got shifted to purple, but still the same value structure and it still works. And that's essentially what I meant by having a solid contrast hierarchy can really free up your color palette. So what I really like to do when I work in Photoshop is to have a hue saturation layer up top. So when I'm working, I often go back and check the hue saturation layer with the saturation turned all the way down just to see what my piece value structure look like in black and white. And this is also a really good way to sort of refresh your eyes after you turn that layer off and then see the colors again. And that often helped me make color decision choices.